I'm Daniel, the past life regressionist, and it's time to begin.
Lift off and the clock has started.
This is Timeless Spirituality. Enjoy Eternity Time. Hey everyone, welcome back to Timeless Spirituality. It is time for part one of a new two-part episode, and let me tell you, collectively, I think that this is the best episode in the history of Timeless Spirituality. I'm saying it. I think it is the best episode. I am so excited for you guys to hear it and just absorb it, learn from it, have fun with it. It's with my astrology teacher, Jim Sher. I am so happy that he came on the podcast. I have another episode that will be coming out with him probably in a month or so, where he's actually going to do a natal chart reading. And this was just great. I also highly recommend going and checking out Jim's book, Astrology is a Spiritual Path, and that's by Jim Sher. I highly recommend signing up for one of his classes, so go ahead and sign up for his mailing list so you'll be notified when the next one starts. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And I want to go ahead and read Jim's bio for you because we just dive right in. So, Jim Sher received a master's in social work from the University of Texas, followed by postgraduate training in Jungian theory and depth psychology. During this period, he began to study astrology and discovered what a powerful tool it could be in helping a person understand themselves in new ways. Through his studies, he noticed that astrology was a much more accurate tool at describing personality and behavioral patterns than any of the psychological tests in which he had been trained. Not only is astrology helpful in understanding a client, but also in determining what approach would be the most beneficial, as it reveals the nature of a client's talents, proclivities, and difficulties as well. This is when he became convinced that it is important to unite the study of astrology with psychology. In 1998, he became the first executive director of Kepler College in Seattle, Washington, the first degree-granting college of astrology in the United States, where he assisted in the development of the curriculum for the bachelor master's program. This is when he began to discover the great value of teaching astrology in a psychological and spiritual context. A year later, he moved to Los Angeles, where he began teaching classes from this perspective. And in 2002, the Sher Astrological Institute was formed so that the new philosophy could be developed further. Right now, the Institute offers beginner, intermediate, and advanced levels of study. He also has a private practice as a therapist and counselor with an emphasis in individuals, couples, and family counseling. In 2008, he founded the Sher School of Wisdom, which provides enlightenment intensives designed to assist participants to experience their own true nature and enable individuals to make an evolutionary leap in consciousness while living successfully in the everyday world. So I hope you guys enjoy this two-parter. And with all that said, if you would like to book a regression with me to discover who, when, and where you have been throughout time, you can reach me on Instagram at The Past Life Regressionist, or you can go ahead and book through my website, thepastliferegressionist.com. And now, it's time to begin. Jim, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Daniel. Looking forward to talking with you today.
Me too. What I don't think you know is that out of everyone I've ever mentioned on the podcast, your name comes up the most. So everyone, this is Jim Sher, I don't want to say infamous, but the famous Jim Sher that I'm always talking about. I know a lot of you guys are probably screaming in the car when I talk about the difference between belief and knowing. That was Jim who taught me that lesson. And it's a game changer. Viewing things through that lens of, is this a belief or is this a knowing? Is this a fact? It changed things for me. So that's Jim. Everyone, this is Jim. If you like this podcast, you also have Jim to thank for a large amount of that, because I was kind of a shell of a human before. I didn't really talk and get open and vulnerable. Jim kind of nudged me to kind of express myself throughout the years. I was very resistant to it at the time, but then I started a podcast a couple of years after, which is something I never would have done.
Yeah.
So you guys can thank Jim if you like what you hear on the podcast. And I just want to also start off by saying just thank you for being such a huge part of my life. I think a lot of the good qualities that I have cultivated, over the last decade that I've known you, I think a lot of that is because of you. So from the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank you for that.
Oh, Daniel, thank you so much.
And he's very humble and modest too. So my first question for you is, what do you believe in?
Look, I spent my whole life really examining not just what I believe in, but the nature of belief, as you already mentioned. If a person is operating truly from belief, it means, and it's because it's fair, it's good to have belief, but it means you don't know. You don't have to believe in something you know. So making a distinction between the two is a very mentally healthy way to live. However, what makes that difficult is that we're born into a family, we're born into a set of programs, whether it be the family, whether it be the culture that we were born into. And from my perspective as an astrologer, we all have our own unique charts. And so we are born into, you might say, a whole set of belief systems and programs and psychological structures, which end up defining who we are, but perhaps in a very limited way that is inconsistent with our own chart, inconsistent with the map of potentials of our natal chart, which is one of my definitions of a natal chart. It's a map of potentials rather than who you are.
My next question for you is one that I don't tell anyone beforehand going into the interview, but I think it's something that's helping to open my eyes to something that I'm really in the pursuit of, and that is faith. What do you feel the difference is between belief and faith?
Oh, gosh. Well, first of all, I love spontaneous questions like that. I'm going to answer that question since this interview has to do with an astrological bent. Dane Rajar wrote, he's one of the few transpersonal astrology theoreticians, but he lived it. And he coined the term that a chart is a map of the law of one's being. This law or set of potentials is usually difficult for a person to consciously own and operate from. But when you begin to, whether it's through astrology or any other means, become aware of your own center, your own beingness is one of the terms that I've used, something happens. Something bigger than you is experienced and felt. For me, faith is that sense of I am moving toward being myself fully in whatever circumstance I find myself in, my unique sense of self. So for me, faith has nothing to do with belief, actually. It has to do with applying the experience that I'm having about being myself and operating from that knowingness, because it's an internal knowing. Am I congruent? Am I living congruently with what I know interiorly to be myself? Am I adapting when it's necessary, but not identifying with what I'm having to adapt to? All of these things mixed together help me not just operate in the world better, but feel better about myself and more authentically myself.
Does that equate to having faith in something in particular?
No, it doesn't seem to. That's where I think belief systems begin to come in. I mean, there's wisdom wherever you find it. Every religion has wisdom within it. And the more non-identified you are about whatever you're looking at, the more you can experience the wisdom contained in it without identifying with it, without saying, okay, I have to be a certain belief system and identify with it to be true to myself. No, you can take the wisdom wherever it lies, wherever you find it. The neighbor next door, in every situation you find yourself. I don't know. Is that an answer to your question?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know if there's a definitive answer to it. I guess I'm just still having trouble following along with the faith component and what faith truly means to you then.
I can understand that. It doesn't seem to be the way most people are operating. When I was young, I was born into a semi-Orthodox Jewish family, and I was expected to be a certain way. And in the family that I was in, the order is you should either be a doctor, a lawyer, or maybe a businessman to be successful, to have meaning in your life, the whole thing. I was born with certain qualities that were inconsistent with what I was brought up in. And not because I was critical of it per se, but I didn't feel it was me. And the older I got, the more I was finding myself rebelling against them, but without wanting to rebel against them, just because I was trying to find me. And even the question of trying to find me was hostile to the belief system I was broken. What is wrong with you, Jim? What are you seeking? Why are you looking elsewhere? It's right here. And so they were upset with me for being who I am in my seeking. And I was lost at first, seeking without a reason for seeking. So that told me there was some type of internal knowing that I didn't have access to yet. And that's when I began to study astrology. It appeared in my life, though. I didn't go seek it. It sought me. I met some people who were really into astrology. They said, hey, check this astrologer out. So I had a reading with this person in Kansas City where I was living. And I still remember the moment I was looking out the window of his second floor, and I thought, oh my God, I know astrology. This is not new to me. And I was hitting my Saturn return, which is around age 27. And it was beautiful and agonizing at the same time because it was so different from the way I was being raised. I didn't know what to do with it. By the same token, though, I knew I couldn't leave it. I couldn't stop it. It was too big. I started looking at people's charts. What's your birthday? Tell me your birthday. So even if I didn't have a computer, there weren't computers when I started. I had to create my own chart. But I could get the sun and the moon. And I just started learning astrology, not from books as much as from people, talking to people about this, that, and the other thing. And it began to coalesce in me around age 30. And that's when the spiritual side of
Sorry,
astrology.
also for the audience right now, is it okay if I say when that was for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about in the mid to late 70s right now.
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm 77. So it was yes, you're right. It started in the 70s, but the part that I'm talking about right now, this painful experience of I'm not in the right place or my family is holding me back, began in the 60s internally while I was living a conventional life on the outside, trying to fit myself into what they expected me to be. I still remember the time when I got into a relationship with a Mormon girl.
Every Jewish mother's dream.
Oh my God, my family disowned me, literally. But what it did was, the important part, I began to entertain other belief systems. I got very involved with the Mormon religion and its belief systems. And how, number one, you talk about faith. They had faith that their religion was true. Their words, not mine. This gave them sense of certainty, reason to live, purpose. It provided psychological nurturing that was extremely comforting to me at the time. But it was rigid. It was a belief system that you had to conform to. At first, I believed in it, and then I realized I didn't. And there was all kinds of problems with the belief system as I learned more, as I grew up. But it also taught me the comfort that people have when they are identified with a belief system, although they would never phrase it to themselves the way I just did to you. So we tie ourselves to a belief system to have meaning and purpose and sense of belonging. For whatever reason, that didn't satisfy me. I needed to go deeper than that, is the way I phrased myself. So in the beginning, I was seeking for something that I didn't know what I was seeking for, and I just completely puzzled as to why I was so dissatisfied, and everybody else was very happy to follow their Judaism or their Mormonism or whatever belief system they were identified with. Or even, frankly, their atheism. If a person has a belief system around atheism, that's a kind of belief system too, I believed. And so anything that blocked my being open to discover more was unsatisfying to me. And then that led me to the study of astrology, other things like tarot, and obviously all kinds of psychic phenomenon as I began to have my own experiences. It told me I was more than just a body, not just because of faith or belief, but because I was experiencing it. And so for me, essentially, I became interested in what is the nature of consciousness itself. And I wanted to mention in the interview, so now's a good time, is that we're living in an interesting time where there are many scientists who believe that consciousness is a priori to the physical reality. This is historically new. Bernardo Kastrup, Tom Campbell, and others really are scientists who now are discovering that the physical reality is the result of consciousness, not the other way around. And that's going against the present scientific paradigms. My point is, I've now leaped into where my seeking has kind of led me to. And it's required that I be really open, including being open to the way astrology should be practiced.
Well, you talked about the Mormons and I would say their conviction of faith. Have you found yourself in that place detached from religion?
No, I don't need that now. I'm perfectly fine when someone needs religion. It's none of my business. But something bigger has replaced it for me. The need is authentic. The need is real and the need is important, but it does not have to be provided by religion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that was why I was really turned off by the word faith for a very long time, is because I really attributed it to religion and thinking you have to be religious to have faith.
Yes.
And then, I'm not so sure anymore. Well, actually, I don't think it has anything to do with religion. I think that a lot of people who are religious have faith, but I think a lot of people who aren't religious have faith as well.
Look, first of all, where you are is a wonderful place to be. But when you want answers to the problem, if you look, like in the United States, for example, when a person has a strong belief and it's not thought of as a belief, but as a knowing,
Mm-hmm.
the natural instinct is to want everybody else to be like you.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the phenomena going on in our political life right now in the United States is the growth of Christian fundamentalism. That belief is what the American people should stand for. So we begin to want others to be just like us. It's not enough. That's what I learned from my Mormon experience. They really advocated and pushed for their people to convert others to the Mormon religion. They used all kinds of psychological methods like guilt to do so. But it reduced, in my view, their humanity. And it limited their minds along a certain line of thinking and line of believing that just as it limited their growth and created all kinds of problems for a society when other people don't agree with you. They have their own belief systems or they're just different.
Before we jump into your journey with astrology, do you see that in astrology at all?
Yes, when I moved to Los Angeles about 25 years ago, I began to participate in astrology organizations for the first time. I was learning astrology on my own when I was in Kansas City, working with people studying astrology. And because I have a MSW, a Master's in Social Work, but then I started studying Carl Jung and depth psychology and became a therapist. So those set of experiences have obviously affected my view of how astrology should be viewed. And I find that I've found astrology organizations when I join them to often be, with all due respect, silly, lack of having a philosophy, and lack of good, positive thinking, just inability to think straight. I have all kinds of, as a teacher of astrology, I've seen all kinds of stories where astrology has been used to damage people in terms of their just psychological maturity. One example, I met a student in one of my classes. She was bursting with this question, and I remember when she finally said it, I realized that she wanted to ask me all along. She said, Jim, look at my chart and tell me if I'll ever be rich. And if so, when will I be rich? I giggled for a moment. And I said, I will answer your question, because she knew that I was against concrete prediction. I made that clear. She said, okay, I'm going to answer your question. But if you answer the following question, what are you doing to be rich? She said, nothing. I'm not doing anything to be rich. I'm just asking you to look at my chart. Look up there, Jim. Tell me from my chart, will I be rich? And I looked at her and I said, you will not be rich. Is that coming from your chart? And I said, no, it's not coming from your chart. You're not doing anything to be rich. Not a thing. Now, that didn't mean, by the way, that what she was doing was invalid. She was living her life fine, but she was holding this desire to be rich and not doing anything outside of her, not doing anything to so-called be rich, which apparently she wanted to be. Well, how's a person going to be rich if they're not doing something to be rich? Go to Las Vegas? What? She wasn't going to Las Vegas either. She wasn't even betting money. She wasn't doing lotto. She wasn't doing anything. That's poor thinking. That's the bottom line. It's poor thinking. And then if you try to use that poor thinking in astrology, your entire use of astrology, as well as your understanding of astrology, will be horrible.
Well, I think that's kind of like when, I don't remember at what point this was that you brought this up. It may have been in astrology or in the contemplation inquiry class, which you pitched to me as the gateway to mysticism. Didn't understand why it was at the time. I thought I was going to be taking a class where we were doing potions and stuff like that. Not really. But anyways, I understand how it could have been the gateway to mysticism. But you talked about the difference between a goal and an intention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what was really profound for me about that was when you spoke about the intention, it's like you didn't have to know exactly how you were going to get there. You didn't have to have a list of steps like with goals. Like I'm going to hit this marker at this point, this marker here until I reach my goal of here. But it was setting the intention and then kind of seizing the moment when those things would cross your path to help get you to that place with that intention that you set.
Right.
So it's like action was still required.
Yes.
I don't think there was a question. I think I was just wait, action was still required?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't say it any better than me. When a person has some clarity, internal clarity about who they want and what they really want, not based on their program, not based on what they should want, but I really need this, then you can create an intention that has clarity in it. That is a very magical moment, because when a person truly knows what they need, I understand what they want, but actually we're talking about need, whether that be psychological, physical, or whatever, to be themselves. The universe will support that. Their actions will be congruent with their purpose, and their life will change, and they will get what they need, because I think the universe will provide that.
So with that, what has your journey been with astrology? I mean, how have you gotten to where you are right now?
It's an interesting thing, because when I began studying astrology, I never intended to be an astrologer, which may sound crazy, but I was much more interested in the mystical, spiritual side of life and the depth psychology side of life. But when I moved from Oregon to Los Angeles, I'd gone through a divorce, and frankly, I needed money, and I didn't want to go work for Starbucks or something like that. So I had, from a previous business that I owned, I had enough money to be able to start an astrological practice, and that included for me teaching. So my first act in Los Angeles was not to create a school per se, just to start teaching astrology to people interested in it. So this was 26, 27 years ago, and it just took off from there. And one of the keys that I want to say is that the more I taught astrology, the more I learned. I used to say, I don't remember if I said it in your class, but I used to say, I hope you guys will learn astrology. I will do everything I can to help you, but I know for sure I will learn astrology from you. So for me, astrology is very alive, and I sense its aliveness. I experience its aliveness, but part of that is through my connection with other people. It's to see how the chart, these archetypal principles are operating for them. So imagine a person has an aha moment about astrology or about anything, really an aha moment of clarity. I experience that with them. I see it. Oh, okay. This is clarifying for them on a what I'll call a deep being level. And so it's an awakening moment for them. I know I can talk to you like this because I know you have these. My job as a teacher is to help a person have that awakening moment, whether that be through astrology or any other philosophical discussion.
I mean, right now, there are just so many examples that are running through my head. I know on the show I've talked about when you and I were sitting in your living room and you pointed the upholstery and you said to me, a tear appears in that upholstery. What do you do? I said, you find out how a tear appeared in the upholstery. You know, tears don't just magically appear. And you're like, no, you fix the tear. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Tears don't just magically appear. You have to, like, if you don't know how it happened, it's just going to happen again. You're like, no, you fix the tear.
Yeah.
And for such a long time, that pissed me off so much because I remember even saying, well, it's like an arsonist. If they're setting fires, you got to catch the arsonist. But what I neglected to take into consideration, even with that example, is you still have fires that are burning out of control. You got to put the fire out. So those things have really even shaped me beyond astrology because as a past life regressionist, I'm very focused on cause and effect. What was the cause in this lifetime or another lifetime that really set the stage for you to be this way?
Mm-hmm.
But what really matters at the end of the day, how do you fix it now? What do you do with that now? How do you fix the chair?
Right.
Because that's what's important. We can spend all the time in the world understanding the circumstances that have created where you are right here and right now. But what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Well, I obviously agree with that proposition. This is partly why I use astrology, but not for the usual reasons. It's to help a person align with their nature and fix themselves. Because most people live in a way that is not truly who they are.
But do you think anyone fully lives as they truly are?
I don't know. It's a process for me, always. But I think what I use the word is can I align with whether you want to call it higher self, best self, the part of you that has an inner knowing of what is right for us. And if time shows that that's not actually who you are, okay, learn from that. Is there an ultimate answer to your question? I don't know. I truly don't know. But one of the things that I emphasize in my classes a lot now is that astrology can actually do the opposite of what people think. It can help a person make better choices, freer choices, expand their decision space. By that, I mean that if a person's really got a strong set of belief systems, their ability to make decisions must conform to that set of beliefs. When you let go of the belief systems, you align with a bigger purpose or something more aligned to your own nature, your freedom to choose expands accordingly, which allows you to meet each situation you find in life in a more open way, in a more creative way. You can see potentials you couldn't see before. That's where I define freedom. Freedom is the ability to see potentials you couldn't see before.
How has astrology helped you with that on a personal level?
For me, that's a huge question. There's a lot of answers. Let me just go with what comes off my head. First of all, sometimes it's just fun to look at the chart of somebody or look at the transits, which is where the planets are now. And it's kind of tickling to see how there's a correspondence between what I'm experiencing out there in the world and what the chart is showing. However, I'm always remembering that a chart is a map of potentials and it is a system. Life is bigger than that. So while it can guide me, I always now remember life is bigger than any description that I might have or any belief system. Let me, if I may, read one of the characteristics of transpersonal astrology that I looked at and wanted to express.
Okay.
This form of transpersonal astrology emphasizes an archetypal understanding of not only astrology, but of life itself. This includes expanding on the nature and power of synchronicity. Astrology must not merely allow for the existence of mystery, it must fully demonstrate its power and inevitability. So, this is the opposite of how people try to use astrology in terms of prediction. This is beginning to feel the archetypal nature of life, that we are participants in something much vaster and more mysterious than anything our mental constructs can handle. That it's not only our source, but it's who we are now. It's in us now. The expression that we are God comes to mind, but I'm not using that word because it's such a connotation filled word.
Like if I were a third grader, how would you break that down to me right now?
It's hard.
Mind if I take a crack at it?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Might help me.
When it comes to transits, I mean, let me back up. I am a firm believer in free will, but I also believe in fate. I don't think that the two need to be separate from each other. I think that both can be true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, like with the transits, I believe that transits, and yeah, so for those of you who are listening who are unfamiliar with the transit, that just means the placement of where the chart is, where the planets are at this very moment. And if we're looking at the natal chart, your birth chart, it's how it corresponds, or how the planets correspond in a geometrical configuration to your natal chart planets, which are always fixed. And the theory, which I firmly believe in, and it sure looks to be the case, is that based off of these configurations, whether that be the more free-flowing aspects, such as the trine or the conjunction, will create certain events for you. And then there's the more restricted ones, such as the squares and the oppositions. And I think the conjunction can also be a little restricted at some points, depending on the planet. But it creates events in your outer world, and then you respond to them. So with that, like I believe that we have these fated events, but where free will comes into the equation is what do you choose to do with it? Do you choose to go to the left? Do you choose to go to the right? Do you choose to stand up? Do you choose to sit down? Do you choose to confront? Do you choose to run away? What do you choose to do with this situation that has been presented on your path? Is that kind of...
Yes, that's well said to me. I don't know how you say that to a third grader.
That's a good point.
Exactly. But I agree with what you're saying. I think you're right that one of the most difficult concepts to understand is that fate and free will both exist. It's all a matter of perspective. Where astrology gets complicated is when we realize that we have a certain nature, and it's our nature that makes those choices. In a given moment, a person can believe that they're choosing an experience that they're choosing, and yet later on realize that that choice was one's nature.
So how does free will factor into that then, if it's just your nature?
Okay, where I'm now with that question is that the mind creates the distinction, and that it's not a necessary thing to have. You experience a choice. That's all that matters. It's an experience of choice.
Oh, here we go with the fucking chair again.
Huh?
Here we go with the fucking chair again, the upholstery on the chair. Just when I think, you're like, oh, it's just a choice.
Do you experience it as a choice? Then it is a choice. It doesn't take away the choice because it's experienced. That's what matters.
Just the experience.
The experience of free will matters.
So would you say the choice is an illusion then?
Perhaps.
Well, what purpose?
For what purpose? That's the key.
What do you believe?
That's why I wrote the book. I never, ever believed I should write a book or would write a book.
I'm glad you did.
Oh, I am too now. I'm not sure I ever would have without COVID. I wrote the book while there was what COVID was happening and where was I going to go. So ask the question again.
I guess what I'm ultimately asking you, which is a question I don't think any human is meant to answer, but I'm going to ask anyways. So what's the purpose of it all?
Well, first of all, it is the ability of a human and the necessity of a human to ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about our nature that has to ask the question. That's amazing. The human being is unlike any other animal because it can ask that kind of question. Why does it matter? Why am I here? What's my purpose? Now, the reason for the book was that at the end of it, if I can get people to read all of the book, is that we are here to evolve the species, the human species, but not for us. I think one of the things that some physicists are realizing that ancient wisdom already knew was that there's a thing called universal consciousness. It's usually called God, but it's better to call it universal consciousness, from which all is created. Why did it do that? Now, again, that could be called an arrogant question, or you realize it is not, it is my nature to ask the question. Therefore, universal consciousness wants me to ask that question. What does universal consciousness get from us asking the question, why am I here? This is philosophy. And this is one of the things that I think astrology lacks.
The philosophical component?
Yes, there's an answer. And again, it's part of the deeper understandings of esoteric wisdom. Universal consciousness had to create something out of itself in order to see itself. Every moment we have a major cognition and we go, pow. That same pow is happening for universal consciousness itself. How could it experience that except through us? If it's the all.
I love where we're going with this right now. I agree with you. I don't know if it would need us though, in order to experience itself. I can't begin to imagine what a consciousness like that would be like, or what an energy like that would be like, and what its capabilities would be. Right. But then again, maybe it needs some foot soldiers. Maybe. And just like you were saying, it's like, if not for humans, then what? Were humans then created in one aspect or another to serve God or the universal consciousness, or, whatever expression or terminology anyone is comfortable with?
That's right. But we have the right to ask these questions because this is how we are made. We have every right to ask these questions and to seek some kind of answer. That's a part of our nature. So wouldn't universal consciousness want us to ask these questions?
Sounds like we don't have a choice.
We don't have a choice. It's our nature. You just answered what we talked about earlier. Now, obviously, it's also some people's nature more than others. Some people can have this discussion that you and I are having, and some people cannot. Mm-hmm. That's part of the diversity of human existence and human beings.
So why would those people be created to not ask the question?
We're back to evolution. I think as a species, we're evolving, and part of the nature of the evolution is to be able and even spurred on to ask those type of questions. And other people aren't ready. They're so embedded in the material world and identified with it as all there is that they aren't going to engage in such an inquiry.
I don't know. I got 4 placements at Taurus.
Yeah, you got other things too.
That's true. I guess it offsets it.
One of which is Pluto. One of the astrological meanings of Pluto is that it intensifies things so the unconscious can be seen. One of the reasons I got into Jung so much was that he basically regarded the purpose of life is to make the unconscious conscious.
Also, for everyone who's listening, you all have a Pluto, but I think, Jim, are you just referring to my Pluto placement?
Yes, but right. Everybody has Pluto process.
But I have mine in Scorpio in the 8th house.
Right.
So it's kind of encouraging me to ask those questions.
Yes, you were made to ask these questions.
Which goes in opposition to all of that Taurus that just wants to eat food and be comfortable and appreciate beauty and be very stubborn, which I think can also be the Scorpio part a bit too.
Well, That's right.
I'm not making excuses. It's just in my nature.
Taurus is one of the 12 archetypal fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
There is no life on earth without Taurus. It's the ground. It does not mean it cannot be spiritual. As a matter of fact, many saints and wise people have been Tauruses because they are grounded enough in the earth of life to realize there's something special going on. It's weird, but the more grounded a person is in a certain way, the more they're likely to ask fundamental questions, like the kinds we're having right now. This discussion is being had by somebody with a lot of Taurus, is it not?
Yeah.
So there must be something more about the archetype than what the books write.
That's true. That's why sun sign astrology, just your sun sign. And yeah, I'm a Taurus. That's not all that I am. I'm so much more than just a Taurus.
It's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is to try to help people move past such silliness.
So with that, how would you like to see people approach astrology?
Well, first of all, if a person doesn't know their ascendant, sun and moon, they can't say they understand anything, because everybody's there. If you're looking at sun signs, you're dividing the horoscope into 12 archetypal parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means you're dividing humanity into 12 types. Humanity is much more complex than that, and so is your chart. One of the things that I teach students after they learn the fundamentals is what is the most important archetypal phenomenon of your particular chart. And that's more than the sun and moon in Taurus or whatever. So looking at the chart fully there's a lot of depth there. There's a lot of unique characteristics. By the same token, though, we're all human, so we're all fundamentally asking the same questions to some degree. So here's the key to me. Astrology helps us be who we are. It helps us accept who we are without it being who you are fated to be blindly, as if you're not a participant in your life. It does not mean that you're not a participant. It doesn't mean things are just happening to you. We're here to make choices, and we're here to learn how to make better and better quality choices.
Well, how does the learning come into play if choice is an illusion?
I think it's as simple as the more information you have about whatever, about life, if it's grounded information, the better the quality choices you can make, whether you're using astrology or anything else. You have to accept yourself and your nature for you to be able to be fully yourself and to make better choices. Astrology can, properly used, help you with that.
But what if I'm not making those choices, though, because it's just my nature? I guess that's where I'm also struggling with this right now, is because it's like, to me, the illusion of choice, or, what I thought was free will, that's what felt like the purpose to me, the purpose to walk through this life and this existence with my nature in tow and make those choices, to go against the grain sometimes, or to live out that higher octave of a plan instead of lower octave, because each planet has their perks and their not so good parts. So I want to live out through that higher octave and learn from the lower octave, learn from my mistakes. So what becomes the purpose at that point? Or is it just to serve God?
Even that need that you just expressed is part of your nature. In your question, there's a bit of separation between things that I don't think are actually separate. The seeking that you're doing is part of your nature. And yes, you can find it in your chart. But if astrology is not used to help you validate that need, then it's negative. It's not something that should be ever used by anybody. It's used to validate one's nature. This is a key principle to me. And so there must be, and there is, a part of your chart, so to speak, that is needing to ask the questions you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
There's no separation.
Well, I mean, I hear you. By the way, everyone listening, there's no one who can piss me off like Jim, but this is why I appreciate him so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because just when I think I've started to have it figured out, Jim comes in there and is like, I got to rethink everything. Where is the choice if I don't have choice? Like if it's just within my nature and I'm going through the motions and I was put here along with 8 billion other people at this time in a linear sense to go through this experience so the universal consciousness or God, the collective consciousness could learn and experience through us, then where does choice come into play? Or is it still just that experience that I get to have that experience while thinking I'm making that choice?
Let me introduce an astrological principle that I think might help in this question of yours.
I'm probably living my chart out right now by sticking on this too, but yeah, what you got?
Oh, it's all right. This interview process is actually helpful. Your questions are helpful. Astrology has what's called the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But for thousands of years, astrology has only had the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, the big seven.
The ones you could see without a telescope.
Correct. And therefore, the system of astrology that works so well is thousands of years old. We understand the archetypal meaning of those seven. In 1778 or 1776, Uranus was discovered. 1845, Neptune. 1930, Pluto. These three are extremely new to human experience, at least conscious human experience, which means they have a purpose that is of a different order than Sun through Saturn. So for me, astrology must, I'm calling it transpersonal astrology, must redefine the nature of the outer planets to make a distinction between Sun through Saturn versus Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. The outer planets, to me, to put it simply, is to be transcendent in nature and help a person move toward a higher state of consciousness. That's its purpose. And when humanity discovered those planets, they also began to be exposed to the principles. For example, the United States separated from England when Uranus was discovered, declaring independence. That act historically was a huge movement in the part of humanity itself, not just between England and the coming United States. It was saying that individual matters. The conformity didn't always have to control us. So Uranus is literally, the meaning of it is to separate from the norms so that a person can become individually who they are. We call it freedom. The United States, we emphasize our freedom.
Could there be an argument to be made that Uranus was reacting to what was going on here at the time? Because if the revolution, which was formally declared in 1776, but it was starting before. I mean, if you go back a couple of years, it was just the Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776, but the revolution really started, I believe, a couple of years before that.
Right.
Could you make an argument that Uranus was just feeding off of what was going on here, and then in perpetuity was mirroring that back to the world and to the aspects that it was making to your chart, to other planets?
Right.
And maybe we're not at the will of the planets, that it is a cooperative experience that we're having.
I think that's a really important consideration to have. Yes. This is where it gets weird. Did it cause us to become more individual, or were we ready for it? Uranus existed before it was discovered.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the issue. The issue is, when did we discover it?
Mm-hmm. And
is there a correspondence between our discovery of it and what the next step of human evolution is? That's what I think we're dealing with. I think universal consciousness literally wants humanity to evolve to a higher state. That's its need, and we are reflections of that need.
So what goes beyond Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto then? I mean, we do have objects that are out there at distant places that are probably not discovered as of now. We also have vessels that were launched back in the late 70s, I believe, that are making their way, out there into the outer reaches of space right now and still transmitting back, from what I understand. So
I don't have an answer of that, except that I have an opinion.
What you got?
My opinion is that when you look at Star Wars and Star Trek and its popularity, no matter how good or bad the quality of the shows might be, it has changed our world, how we see ourselves. We think of ourselves as more than just our own solar system now. We can see into the vastness of space through our incredible telescopes. Our minds have expanded. Whether we're ready to leave the solar system isn't the point. We are thinking about it. So I'm thinking there are forces, wherever you want to say they're coming from, that are pushing humanity to think way beyond the geocentric model of just the Earth is all there is.
Well, I think we've been going in that direction for the last couple of 100 years. But like,
Yeah.
but with that, with the power of the telescopes that we have at this point, because this goes beyond Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 and the Voyager program that I was talking about before with those, vessels that are out there. If Uranus entered into our awareness with its discovery through a telescope, why haven't all of those planets we've now discovered? I mean, I don't know the number, but
Well, I'm thinking they are. That's what I meant to express.
God, so like even in other solar systems,
Even it's affecting our human imagination. We're imagining things that humanity never spent any time imagining. Hell, your question itself is proof of it. No, there's no concrete idea of which asteroid or which thing is causing it, but you're taking it seriously, or you wouldn't have asked the question. What is beyond is my point. You're asking the question, what is beyond? Because you're aware that there may be something beyond. That's an awakening of the human spirit that is historic.
what if these questions were asked thousands of years ago? I mean, even before astrology.
I think they were, by a very few, I think they were. History shows that they did exist before. I just think that more and more people are taking it seriously and will continue to take it seriously. The number of people who think that astrology, for example, that there's something to it is quite large. I've done experiments myself. If I at a restaurant, I will go to a group of people that they know who I am because I go to the same restaurant sometimes. And I'll ask randomly, I said, do you think there might be something to astrology? And 50% say yes. 50% say yes. These are random people who do not so-called believe in astrology. Why? What does that mean? It means that something in the human spirit is considering things that it didn't used to experience. I know science says, well, you still believe in superstitions. You must get over it. But I don't think we're that foolish.
Where would you like to see astrology go? Or at least the exploration, the teaching of it?
Well, first of all, that's pretty easy to answer. For me, I'm trying to develop a new philosophy that completely reimagines astrology. And I'm calling it transpersonal astrology, although Dane Rudhyar was the first to use the term. It completely redefines how it's used and what it's for, and it's the advantage of its use that way. So my goal is to promote what I'm calling transpersonal astrology, whether it's by teaching or the book or these interviews or whatever, because I want astrology to be put on a completely new footing where it can answer these deeply philosophical and important questions in a more mature way instead of all this astrological silliness.
I mean, so how do you think it's being utilized now? I mean, among the masses, how would you say it's being utilized? Just so people
even
can
the people
contrast.
who look at their charts and look at sun sign astrology, it's play. They're playing. They don't take it seriously. So that's how it's being used. It's being accepted on one hand, but not in any serious manner.
I guess it's also hard for me to comprehend it being any other way because this is the way that I learned through you.
Sure.
And yeah, so I mean, I'm still kind of just shocked when I see it being used otherwise. And, used, as we've talked about, just for the fear mongering component
Yes.
and the doom and gloom. Not really from how do you make a choice in this situation and grow from that choice? But I have to question this whole choice thing again. That'll be a fun one to bite.
I mean, if you just look at what drives you truly and you accept that as part of your nature, does that change your existence? If you fully accept who you are in this way?
No, I don't think so.
You're still doing what you need to do.
Yeah. I mean, as of now, I mean, my whole world could shatter tomorrow when I wake up. Be like, it's all an illusion. I have no choice. I don't think so. I think I'll keep going on because I think that would just be a belief. I don't think I'm foolish enough to be like, this is a fact because Jim says so.
Right.
I respect what you say, but I don't know. Nevertheless, I think, I'll still continue moving forward in the way that I see is best fit for me. Keep asking those questions. Keep thinking that I'm making the choices that I'm making and that I have the free will.
That's
and that it's
fine.
okay to move through life that way.
My point is that you're taking things seriously that did not used to be taken seriously by hardly anybody on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a matter of getting answers. It's a matter of sensing that there's something fundamentally important about it. And so you're there. Do you have all the answers? No, that's not the point. You're asking the questions. You're inquiring in a way that you're taking seriously. That's all I mean.
I enjoy it. I think that's what matters too.
Sure. That's what I mean by congruence between those choices and your nature. That means you're becoming yourself, which is a way of using the language to describe the process that you're in. And by the way, Carl Jung literally defined that process as the term individuation.
Well, as an Aquarius rising, I really appreciate that.
Glad to help.
So before we get to the Saturn game, I do want to talk about your book a little bit more. Is this a book for someone who has no knowledge of astrology?
I hope so, yes. I wrote it in a certain kind of way that it was not scholastic. I include my story. I include myself in it. I didn't write it from theory as much as I wrote it from experience. It was meant to be both an astrology book and a spiritual book, metaphysical book. And it's advocating a position, the birth of the new human, which I take literally and I take seriously. So ultimately, the book, which leads to the end, which concludes that we are indeed here to evolve and grow and to, I even use the word mutation, where we're trying to become a new, higher level, transcendent species from where we are now. And I believe the conflicts we're having politically are a reflection of this deeper change that's happening, not just in the United States, but in the world. So it's happening.
I have to ask, is it, or is this just the experience that God or collective consciousness is choosing to have for us to experience it and to experience us?
I don't know for sure, but I regard the present Republican Party, for example, and MAGA itself as a psychological reaction to progress. They hate it. Donald Trump has recently said openly something we all know. I hate Democrats. He used the word hate. When there's hate like that, there's a fundamental reason that he wouldn't even know about, which is that he is totally resisting the movement. He's reflecting the psychological refusal by many people to accept the kind of progress that you and I have talked about since we've known each other. The so-called spiritual progress is happening, and MAGA is its proof. I understand you're part of you saying, is it really happening? I don't know. But my opinion is that
I think it's happening.
MAGA is the proof the change is coming at a fundamental level.
I guess the question that I'm asking myself right now that I'll say out loud is, and I know this is going to be an opinion answer on your part. Why do you think that, and I'm going to use the word God, why do you think that God would choose to have that experience?
There's only one possible answer, which is this. God is evolving too.
You sure you want to say that out loud?
I do.
What does that mean, God is evolving too? By the way, I agree with you.
We're the means by which God evolves. There's so much to go into when I say that, but there's no other answer. We have a certain belief system about what God is that's supplied by religion.
Also, don't let Trump hear you say that.
Don't worry.
Because I hear that he's a listener of timeless spirituality.
He wouldn't understand.
That Daniel, the past life regressionist, I don't like the way he talks.
Nope. But there is a silent movement that I think reflects the growth of it. It's driving this because it needs it. It's not perfect. This image of God as perfect is immature.
I mean, I don't even think that I can remotely comprehend even what perfection is.
No, it's a ridiculous consideration, in my opinion.
So back to the book. I want to take a book like The Inner Sky by Stephen Forrest and your book, Astrology as a Spiritual Path. What do you think it will take to Why would it be beneficial for someone to start with your book as opposed to The Inner Sky?
For astrology, I think you should probably start with The Inner Sky. I wrote this book with the intention that it would be of interest to astrologers and non-astrologers alike. That was my intention, actually, that I regarded it as a spiritual book. And, I described from throughout the book that this is my path. I'm expressing the nature of my path, emphasizing that each of you readers have your own, and that astrology might be able to help you validate your path, which is different. So the book was written as a reflection of my path, encouraging others to validate their own.
Why would this book make a seasoned astrologer uncomfortable while reading it?
I don't know if they would read it or not, or take it seriously enough to read. But it would make them uncomfortable if they continued to believe that it can make concrete predictions, for one. If I may, for the purpose of this interview, I'd like to read a quote by Dane Rudhyar about this very question. To him, I'll just read it literally, to know the future, even if it's understood that there can be knowledge only of the potentiality of future events, is not conducive to personal integration. It is not sound psychological knowledge. Even the knowledge of what course of psychologically valuable movement, if you're trying to know the future, it is not sound. It's unfortunate when we use astrology that way. So, first of all, we know for sure that you can't go to an astrological convention and hear anything about Dane Rudhyar. He wrote 38 books, and he's not part of the conversation of astrology. Why is that? What subjects are being covered at these conventions? So I don't know that they would ever read it. If they did, I don't know what their experience would be. The few people that have were very almost whispered their support. One in particular, who was on the circuit, you might say, of conventions, a famous astrologer, who he didn't read the book, but we discussed this seriously. And he pulled me aside to talk openly. He said that he could not speak on this at the conventions.
How come?
It wouldn't be heard. It wouldn't be accepted, because right now the movement in astrology is through concrete prediction. And moreover, there's no one talking about the philosophy of astrology with all of the belief systems inherent in it. When you listen to this conversation, listen to it in light of the fact that it's redefining or urging for a redefining of the nature of astrology that includes being able to ask and inquire into the kinds of questions you've done. You yourself are a proof that this is relatively unconventional.
I like that as an Aquarius rising. Thank you.
Well, you talk to other people in astrology. What have you found?
Yeah, there's not many people talking about this.
No.
And I think it should be talked about more. Fellow time travelers, your journey through time awaits you. Just want to thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. And if you're interested in discovering who, when, and where you have been throughout time, and you'd like to book a session with me, just go ahead and send me a message on Instagram at The Past Life Regressionist, or you can reach me through my website, yourpastliferegressionist.com.